Hi, and welcome to Sketchbook Club. This week I'm going to talk about a German artist named Felix Scheinberger. Felix is a teacher, an illustrator. He's illustrated over 60 children's books, and he teaches in Berlin, teaches illustration. He's also a member of the Sketchbook School faculty, and he's an artist whose work I really admire. I find him really, really inspiring. I love to look at his drawings. I love to look at the classes that he's taught for us because he really explains things in an interesting way. He's also, I think, a great watercolorist, but in a very simple, direct way. And I really sort of aspire to emulate a lot of the work that he does because I think it's really, it's spectacular, it's emotional, it's classic in its way, and yet it's very fresh and modern. So I think that he's a great sketchbooker and a great travel artist, and one that I recommend highly. So first I want to talk about this book of his urban watercolor sketching, which is a book that came out a couple years ago in America. I think it has a poor title, Urban Watercoloring. It's not really about urban sketching so much, but it's about lots of other things as well. And he really explains in detail how to use watercolors, how to think about color, how to draw, how to make decisions about composition, about lighting, and this book is really heavily illustrated. I love the sections where he talks about specific colors and why he likes them and what emotions they have. I love the way that he draws people. His lettering is fantastic. There's just so much to learn from this book. And in fact, I wanted to show you that, a few months ago I decided to focus on learning to use the iPad as my drawing vehicle, just for a change of pace. And the first assignment that I gave myself was to take some drawings from Felix's book and to try and to emulate them. And so I wanted to show you quickly what that's like. It was sort of an experiment, an attempt to see, how does this iPad work? How does this application called Procreate that I was kind of focusing on as my main tool, how does that work? And really, what am I doing with this tool? How does it relate to my sketchbook practice? So I decided I would try and take Felix's work, which I really wanted to study intently anyway, particularly in that book, and I wanted to see how it worked. So as you can see from this gallery, this is the gallery in which let me adjust that. This is the gallery in which I put all these different drawings that I had done based on his book. And so there's an example. Felix's work is kind of raw. It is colorful. His line work is really fantastic. So I thought by really studying it and having this kind of as an assignment for myself, I would kill two birds with one stone. I would learn to use the iPad, and I would learn a lot from Felix's characters, his style, his line quality. I studied how he uses watercolors, even though I wasn't actually using watercolors myself. And one of the things that strikes me about Felix is his color is always very clean. And that's one of the things that I was able to accomplish on the iPad in some ways more easily than I'm able to accomplish it with my own watercolor set, just because these colors are much more pure. And so anyway, so this is an interesting experiment. Let me see if I've shown you most of them. I don't think I managed to, reproduce what Felix does. That wasn't really the point. It was really more of an inspiration for an exploration. But I think, that's a great way to use an artist who you like. You can copy them, but you can also say, I'm going to try and target some aspect of their work and see if I can make it my own. And so that's really what this book has meant to me. It's a well-thumbed book. I recommend it highly to a lot of people. Urban watercolor sketching. Now, Felix, I saw Felix in Berlin last autumn, and he he gave me this book, which is a fairly recent book of his called Hado Berlin, and you see his beautiful handwriting here. And what this book is it's from his sketchbook of going out to nightclubs. You know, Berlin is of course famous for its nightlife, and particularly some of the darker side. So I want to warn you that this book I'm going to show you has drawings from life. Some of these clubs are sex clubs. They have nudity in them. There's still watercolors. There's nothing too upsetting. But if you want to skip past this part, I understand. But so he goes to these kinds of clubs, and you know, he has people lining up. But he said, you know, it's forbidden, of course, to bring cameras into these clubs, but he was allowed to always bring a sketchbook. So he went in, and you know, this just drew all the characters, all the types, and the buildings, of course, in which they take place. And you know, this is a sort of form of reportage that he's doing in a sort of loose, somewhat cartoony style, but he's really capturing, I think, the atmosphere, the environment of these clubs. His collage technique is really fantastic as well. And of course, his lettering, drawing, I guess this is like stuff that people put in there from their pockets, their cell phones and cigarettes and things. I'm not sure. Slightly scary creature there. So anyway, so this book is full of these kinds of fantastic drawings, some of which are, as I said, a little on the racy side, but hopefully you'll see this as you know, another example of an artist showing us another side of life, which we might not see otherwise. But the real reason that I wanted to talk about Felix today was because he has a brand new book. It's called Dare to Sketch, A Guide to Drawing on the Go. Now, this is a book that's been out in German. I think it's been translated in several other languages. It was not available in the United States until September of 2017. And it is a fantastic book. It's somewhat like urban watercolor sketching in a way, in that it's a book about teaching you how to draw. But it's, I think, in a lot of ways, an even better introductory book, because it is really about how to keep a sketchbook in a very simple, direct way. Everything about this section about how to protect your sketchbook so that other people don't look into it if you don't want them to. You know, how to use it as a journal, how to use it as an opportunity to just doodle and let your mind run wild. It has a lot of specifics about art supplies, like special kinds of pens to use, when to use sepia ink and why you would, the special ways that he uses colored pencils. One of the things I love about Felix's work is that he keeps his pencils until they're really tiny. He just keeps shaving them back, and he likes them when they're really small because you can just toss them in your pocket. He draws with ordinary ballpoint pens, all different kinds of pencils. I love the soft pencils that he uses in particular. You know, here he talks about even glitter pens, and of course watercolors, collage, how to use your sketchbook as a way of capturing your ideas, which is really useful. Blind contour drawing. I just love his characters. I mean, he just is a genius at making people into their essence. And look at that color, the way he uses that red to make that horse pop out. I mean, I've passed this, I've even drawn it. It never has that character the way he does. Part of it's because he uses these dark shadows. You know, he's not afraid to really get in there and do those shadows, but he doesn't feel obliged to do a lot of intermediate shading. So there's just dark, and then there's some textural stuff that shows you this is rusty metal, this is wood, this is the water, but he doesn't feel like he has to cross hatch and do all kinds of detailing in there. This I also love. This whole section is about a really important lesson, which is when to do less and how to leave stuff out. And the importance of recognizing that a drawing sitting on a white page allows your imagination to fill in the environment. And that's a really good, useful skill to have and a way of looking at it. This is interesting. This is actually an exercise that he taught us at Sketchbook School about how movies, you know, frame shots and how you can use that in your sketchbook as a way of drawing interest or telling a story. You know, the compositional elements. A lot of people ask about composition, and I think he does a great job of explaining some of the key concepts behind it, like weight and balance and so forth. Perspective, you know, I think he's not slavish about perspective, but certainly his drawings follow it without him pulling out rulers and that kind of thing. But he explains the basics of perspective to keep in mind. How to represent depth. Look at that spectacular landscape. Simple, simply drawn, but also really rich and full of detail and energy. Those rooftops. Beautiful pencil line work there. This is just about drawing time. You know, how things change, how to look at things from different points of view, how the lighting changes. These are all the views out of a window as he's riding on a train. Great watercolor stuff. So this book has lots of interesting things, lots of ideas. The text is short, so you can read it quickly. You can study drawing. But I have to tell you, I've spent a lot of time with this book. I'm about halfway through it in terms of intensive study. This back part of the book I haven't looked at as intensively yet because I've only had the book for a couple of weeks. But every time I look at it, it makes me stop and go and start drawing. I mean, honestly, that's why I haven't gotten as far into it as I'd like, because there's just so many ideas in here. And when you read them, you want to go and put them to practice. So it's really helpful that way. He talks about life drawing. And again, you know, he's not a photorealistic drawer, although he can clearly render the human body really well. This is all about how to draw things that are moving, particularly animals. Really helpful. He drew my dog when he was here, and that was really fantastic. Maybe I'll add that video onto this little video for you so you can be reminded of what it's like to see him in action. Look at that. Look at the depth. I love that he has this patch of color there, you know, as you see through the buildings, but then he's not afraid to just leave this empty. Really beautiful painting. So, lots of great stuff. Again, spot color, just using a little bit of color, limited palette, and not feeling like he has to color everything in. I think that's really one of the hallmarks of his drawings, is this limited amount of color. I remember the first time I saw that drawing of that car, I had to go and copy it. I just love that the character that he gives that car, so I went and drew my own version of it. So, he also uses so many different media effectively. You know, I think combining pencil and watercolor, this is actually probably sepia ink. The blacks that he uses when he draws with and paints with ink. The way he can use just a spot bit of watercolor to bring some new life to a drawing. I mean, look at this drawing really. It's so large, right? He's covering this giant wall of the old city in Jerusalem, but he's also drawing the individual personalities of these people who are in the crowd. So he's really telling you a lot of story there. And that is a drawing that he has a lot of drawings like this of New York, and I wish I could do something like that. They're just fantastic. And look at how limited the colors are. You know, he's using yellow, orange, red, green, blue, but in very controlled ways, you know, in very specific ways. And he's thinking a lot about how colors sit next to each other, you know, how that makes them have energy that they exchange when you put complementary colors next to each other, that sort of thing. Drawing in museums, drawing these giant landscapes. He does that time and again. Really fun to do, you know, but also how do you think about it, you know. What's great about this is he's drawn all these buildings and they're specific, but then he's also got big ones that break up that landscape. And then he's left the sky empty. So, you know, there's a lot of character to it. He draws food really well too. If you saw one of he's taught 2 classes at Sketchbook Tool, and one of them he painted a fish, and it was really, really tasty looking. I love these patterns that he uses too. He uses this special kind of tape that has a pattern on it that he'll just pop in. So anyway, there's a lot to read in here as well. There's urban watercolor sketching. So look, this book just came out. I was so excited about it that I accidentally ordered 2 copies of it on Amazon, and they both arrived on the same day, and I'm glad to have them both because I know I'm going to wear this book out. It's a really, really useful book, and I think you'll come back to it time and again. It's not like one of the many books. I mean, I have lots of books behind me, and frankly, there's some that I buy. They're interesting when I first bought them, and then they kind of go on the shelf. This book I'm carrying around with me. I've, as I said, for weeks it's been inspiring. So I really like it, and I'm not just saying that because he's a pal of mine. So Dare to Sketch, Felix Scheinberger. But I would look at any of Felix's work. As you saw, some of his stuff is more on the dark side, but he's also done lots of beautiful children's books. And just looking at the way he handles media, it's really great. There's also a 3-minute watercolor lesson video that he did for us that's on YouTube, on our channel. Check that out. It's really fantastic, particularly when he dries his watercolors with a cigarette lighter. So, Felix Scheinberger, this week's Sketchbook Club book. Thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.